All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. You know how we do it here. We take a stack of really interesting sources and we try to pull out, like, the good stuff.
The gems.
The gems, the stuff that's going to, help us in our lives.
Yeah.
And today, we are looking at The Visionary's Path. Rebel Today, Leader Tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Which is such a cool title.
Very cool.
And, I was thinking about this before we even, started recording. I was like,
Yeah.
it is really interesting how a lot of the people that we think of as being like the big visionaries started out as kind of these rebels, these like
The outliers.
outliers.
Totally.
And kind of like, going against the grain.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
that's kind of the message of this book.
It is. I mean, that's kind of I think the core message that, if you want to make a real impact, if you want to, kind of shape the future, you've got to be willing to challenge those norms. You've got to be willing to think differently.
Think differently.
And you got to be willing to go against the grain sometimes and really stand out.
Absolutely. And not be afraid to, like, be told no.
Exactly.
Like, told you're wrong.
Not afraid of failure.
Yeah. And, like, even, not even afraid of, like, failure. It's, like, afraid of being told, like, you're crazy.
Right. Like, your idea is just bonkers.
Like, you're out of your mind.
Totally.
And I think that is really powerful.
I think there's something about those people who have that vision, who can see what could be.
Yeah.
That they almost have like a shield up against the negativity or the doubts. They're so focused on what they see that the other noise kind of bounces off.
Yeah, it just bounces right off.
Yeah, it doesn't even really
penetrate.
Doesn't even penetrate.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a key differentiator. Well, and I think what this book does that I think is really cool is it doesn't just say like, oh yeah, just be a rebel.
No. It's
blind rebellion.
It's not anarchy.
Yeah, it's not just
like,
smashing things up for the sake of it.
Yeah, like down with the men and like,
Right, exactly.
Burn it all down.
No, there's actual I think a real thoughtfulness.
A real thoughtfulness.
And a strategy behind visionary leadership.
Well, and the book also talks about like how these visionaries, they don't just see the world differently. They like see
You see the potential
where other people see
roadblocks.
Yeah. So it's not just about being different for the sake of being different.
Yeah.
It's about being able to see those opportunities that other people miss.
Yeah. And the book also talks about this idea of calculated risk.
Yes.
It's not
really important.
Just about being reckless.
Right. It's not just about throwing caution to the wind. It's about really understanding the systems that you're operating within, gathering information, educating yourself, and then making strategic decisions about where and how to challenge the status quo.
Yeah. Like, okay, so let's... I want to bring up an example.
Yeah.
Because I think this is something that, like, everybody knows about. And I think it's a really good example of this. Steve Jobs and the iPhone.
Oh, yeah. Perfect example.
Yeah, like when he decided, like, no, we're going to get rid of the physical keyboard on the phone.
Yeah. Like huge risk.
Everyone was like, that is insane.
I mean, people thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
They were like, this is gonna flop.
But he had
this
vision.
He had the vision.
He had his vision of like, no, this is going to be better.
This is how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
This is the future.
This is the future
of mobile technology.
And he was right.
He was absolutely right. And it
revolutionized
the entire industry. The entire industry. Every smartphone now is basically modeled after that.
It's basically modeled after that initial vision.
That initial vision.
So that is like, that's a great example of what this book is talking about.
Exactly. And he was deeply informed about technology and design.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't just, some random guy who's like, I don't like buttons.
Yeah.
Like he really understood the intricacies of both of those fields.
Yeah.
And was able to, bring those together in a way that was truly innovative.
Innovative and kind of crazy to think about, like, how much pushback he must have gotten.
Oh, I'm sure there was enormous pushback. I mean, internally.
Internally, yeah.
From the company, probably.
Absolutely. And like, from investors.
From investors and from, the public at large.
Yeah.
I mean, people were skeptical.
It's hard to remember now because we're all so used to it.
We are.
But, like, it is hard to remember.
It's easy to forget how revolutionary it was at the time.
How revolutionary it was.
Yeah.
But that's a great example. Yeah. So, like, how do we start to think like this?
That's the question, right?
Like, how do we apply this?
Yeah, how do we apply this on our own lives?
In our own lives, because it's inspiring to read about Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
But how do we actually take those principles and put them into practice?
Yeah, and, like, it's one thing to say, like, oh, yeah, like, be a rebel.
Right.
But it's another thing to be like, okay, well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, what does that look like?
In my life.
On a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm dealing with, difficult coworker, or,
I don't know.
whatever.
What's that actually look like in the real world?
And I think that's where the book offers some really practical advice.
Yeah.
It's not just about, grand visions.
Yeah.
It's also about recognizing
that
we all have areas in our lives where we've settled for the status quo.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a frustrating process at work.
Yeah. Or, a limiting belief that we hold about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are all these little ways in which we kind of just accept things as they are without really questioning them.
Yeah, and so I think the book is saying, like, in those moments, that's where you can apply this
rebel spirit.
So, like, what if, instead of just kind of going along with it,
going with the flow,
what if I challenge this assumption, or what would happen if I tried doing this differently?
Totally.
And I think that's where the real power of this mindset lies.
Yeah.
It's not about, being a disruptive force.
Yeah.
It's about using that rebellious energy to create positive change.
Positive change in your own life.
In your own life.
Yeah.
In your relationships.
Yeah.
In your work. In your community.
Yeah. And the book also talks about how it's important to be informed. It's absolutely.
It's not just
informed decision making. It's crucial.
It's not just about, like, breaking the rules.
It's not about blindly breaking rules.
Yeah.
It's about understanding why those rules exist in the first place.
Yeah.
And then figuring out, is there a better way?
Yeah.
Is there a way to challenge those rules in a way that's actually going to lead to a positive outcome?
It could be like a strategic rebel.
A strategic rebel! I love that.
Yeah. Right? Like, you're not just like, running around, causing chaos.
Right. It's like having a purpose.
Yeah, you have a purpose.
You have a vision. You have a plan.
Yeah, and you're willing to, like, break some rules.
Bend the rules.
Bend some rules.
Break some rules when necessary.
To get there.
To achieve that vision.
But it's all in service of that larger vision.
Of that larger vision.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction.
So if I were to, like, kind of summarize what we've talked about today.
Let's recap.
Yeah. It's like embracing this rebel mindset.
This rebel spirit.
It's about challenging norms.
Absolutely.
Thinking differently. Staying persistent. Even when you face doubts. Yeah.
Even when you encounter setbacks.
When you face
resistance. When people tell you you're crazy.
Yeah, when people are telling you, like, no.
It'll never work.
This won't work.
You're wasting your time.
You're nuts.
You're out of your mind. Right.
It's about, being informed. And being strategic. In your approach to creating change. Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's about asking yourself, what area in my life needs a little shakeup?
Needs a little rebellious.
A little rebellion.
Yeah.
Where am I? Settling for the status quo.
Where am I just kind of like, going along the flow.
When maybe I could be striving for something more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful
question to ask yourself.
Question to ponder.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening to The Deep Dive.
Yes, thank you all.
We'll be back next week with another stack of sources.
Another
topic. But in the meantime, Think about that question.
Think about that question.
Where can you apply a little rebel spirit?
Rebel spirit to your life.
In your life.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.